Hello, my friends. Let's jump straight into the latest updates on negotiations. Keith Kellogg made a very interesting statement. The war in Ukraine is moving toward a truce, but both Ukraine and Russia will have to make concessions. We want to achieve a comprehensive 30-day ceasefire. Once we reach that, it will be very difficult to restart the war. That's what I believe. And what we need is what I would call a technical roadmap, a list of conditions outlining what the Russians want and what the Ukrainians want. You have to bring them together. He also stated that he is confident Trump is the one who can put an end to this war because the US leader knows both Zelensky and Putin and has an idea and a written agreement in place. Friends. It's gotten harder and harder to comment on these statements because every day we hear that only Trump can stop this war, yet the war itself is only escalating. Meanwhile, late last night, the US Treasury Department announced that Washington has imposed new sanctions on Russia. However, these sanctions don't yet include anything related to oil. America has introduced new sanctions against Russia but removed the wife of Russian billionaire Boris Rotenberg, who is close to Putin, from the sanctions list. The official reason for the sanctions is countering terrorism, but everyone on this list is connected to the theft of grain from temporarily occupied Ukrainian territories and shipments to Yemen. But this only further enrages Russia. Late last night, Russian forces launched heavy attacks on Kharkiv with reports of at least 14 strikes. In Dnipro, at least 10 drones were recorded and explosions were reported. During the day, Kryvyi Rih and many other cities also came under fire. So far, the situation is not improving. And now let's take a look at the frontline situation, starting with the Kursk direction. Here, as before, the Ukrainian side is in no hurry to confirm Russian advances. However, with each passing day, more evidence suggests that Russian forces are getting closer to the border, making it increasingly difficult for the Ukrainian forces to hold the defense. That said, it's important to note that small parts of Russian territory are still under Ukrainian forces' control and they continue to hold their positions. Russian forces are carrying out up to 20 assaults per day, but so far there have been no new breakthroughs into the Sumy region. Meanwhile, in the Belgorod direction, the Russians continue to intensify shelling of border areas. As I mentioned in the previous report, Russian forces are destroying roads that the Ukrainian forces could use for an offensive into the Belgorod region, meaning Russia is already preparing to repel new Ukrainian forces' counterattacks. In the Kharkiv direction, Russian forces continue shelling the city. There was a major drone attack with at least 14 strikes recorded at the time of this report. Once again, attacks have resumed near the village of Liptsi, where Russian forces are attempting to push closer to urban areas. However, the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all assaults, and over the past 24 hours, Russian troops have made no progress. In the Vovchansk area, Russian forces continue the assaults but haven't achieved any success as the Ukrainian forces continue to hold the line effectively. Now moving to the Pokrovsk direction, here activity remains high. The Russians are storming Novoalexandrivka, attempting to break through to Novosergiyevka, and launching assaults on Udachne and Kotlane. Reports indicate renewed Russian breakthroughs on the outskirts of Pokrovsk. Additionally, fighting continues in Zelene, Lysivka, Yelizavetivka, and Tarasivka with attempts to advance through fields near the highway. However, along the front line, Russian forces haven't achieved any significant gains as all assault groups are being neutralized. Meanwhile, Shalin remains intense with a high number of airstrikes, MLRS attacks, and FPV drones in operation. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are storming Preobrazhenka and attempting to break through the fields toward Troitske. Battles are also ongoing for Konstantinopel, while Russian forces try to push further in the area of Rozliv, which they managed to capture a few days ago. However, as seen on the map, it's not yet confirmed that the village is fully under Russian control, only partially, according to reports from Ukrainian forces on the ground. The Russians have practically taken Rozliv, controlling about 90% of the village. Our garrison is almost gone, with only a few units continuing rearguard battles. Now it's not just a matter of leaving Constantinople. It must be done urgently or we'll face disaster. There are Russians on one side of the road and a river on the other, leaving little space for withdrawal. The next defensive line is Oleksiivka-Bogatyr. These villagers are located on both banks of the Vovcha River, and at least in Oleksiivka, defense can be sustained for quite some time. Further ahead, there are solid defensive positions, meaning Russian advances won't be fast unless they deploy another division to attack Novopavlivka. But for now, that remains just their wishful thinking. In the Velika Novosilka direction, Russian forces are pushing toward Vilna Pole and storming Novopel. Though the intensity of offensive operations has slightly decreased, here the Russians are building up reserves for more powerful attacks. Meanwhile, Shalin remains heavy, but no significant changes in the front line have been observed over the past day. In the Zaporizhia direction, Russian forces are advancing toward Novodanilivka and storming Stepove. Regarding Lobkove and Pyatikhatke, there is a high probability that these villages are now under Russian control. Yesterday, video evidence emerged showing captured Ukrainian soldiers, and geolocation footage confirmed that Russian troops raised their flags in an urban area. However, the Ukrainian side hasn't yet officially confirmed the loss of these two settlements, so we are waiting for further updates. In the Kherson direction, the Russians continue their attempts to advance on the islands and move as close as possible to Kherson. However, Ukrainian forces have so far successfully repelled all Russian formations, keeping their front line unchanged. At the same time, Russian troops continue to actively use FPV drones on the right bank of the Dnipro River, making the situation extremely difficult. Now let's move on to the Toretsk direction. Here, Russian forces are not reducing their activity, they continue their assaults on Sherbinivka, attempting to reclaim lost territory. Battles are also ongoing in Leonidivka, with fighting in the central part of Toretsk, as well as assaults on Dachne and Deliivka. However, despite high activity, there have been no changes in the front line over the past 24 hours. In the Chasiv Yar direction, there is currently a lull, likely before a storm, as Russian forces are accumulating reserves and preparing for large scale offensive actions. Their goal is to break through to Konstantinivka and finish the battle for Chasiv Yar. However, Ukrainian forces are doing everything possible to hold the defense, and so far they are succeeding. No changes in positions have been recorded over the past day. In the Siversk direction, Russian forces continue their assaults on Bilohorivka, Serebryanka, Verkhnyo-Kamensk, and are attempting to break through near Ivanodarivka. Their activity remains high, but they haven't managed to make any advances, and the front line remains unchanged. Notably, the Russians are conducting assaults even with armored vehicles, despite their severe shortages. This suggests that they are under orders to break through as quickly as possible using all available resources. However, so far, their efforts haven't yielded any results. In the Liman direction, Russian forces are assaulting Зарічне, Ямполівка, Зелена Долина, Lipovе, and Novomykhailivka, while also shelling Liman. Since yesterday, 18 assaults have been recorded in this area, and the battles continue, indicating a high level of activity. However, Russian forces haven't achieved any new gains, and for now, the front line remains unchanged. In the Borova direction, Russian forces are assaulting Boguslavka and Nova Kruglякivka. However, near Raigorodka, all assaults have ceased for now, and there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. Further south, the situation remains calm, with no new Russian offensives reported. In the Kupiansk direction, fighting continues near Pishane and Stepova Novoselivka. Russian forces are attempting to advance, but the Ukrainian forces are repelling them in open fields. Meanwhile, in the areas of Petropavlivka and Tretikivka, all assaults have stopped and no changes have been observed in the past day. In the Dvorichna direction, Russian forces are assaulting Krasnopershe and Kamyanka. The gray zone is expanding, but they have been unable to establish control over the settlements. For now, the front line remains unchanged. Meanwhile, the US has signed an executive order imposing reciprocal tariffs globally. The golden age of America is returning. Trump announced that he is signing an executive order for reciprocal tariffs worldwide. Dear Americans, today, April 2nd, 2025, will forever be remembered as the day of liberation, the day of renaissance of American industry, the day America's fate was turned around, and the day we began making Americans rich again, said Donald Trump. The US president also announced that the United States will impose a 10% tariff on all imports and a 25% tariff on all imported cars. For decades, friends and enemies of the US have plundered the American economy, but with the introduction of reciprocal tariffs, that ends today, Trump added. According to the US president, Washington will direct trillions of dollars from tariff revenues toward lowering taxes and reducing the national debt. Everything will happen very quickly. According to Bloomberg estimates, global trade worth $33 trillion will be impacted. Trump explained the reason for the tariffs. The US had capitulated for too long to other countries. Speaking in the Rose Garden of the White House, the US president said, I don't blame other countries. I blame previous US presidents who allowed this catastrophic imbalance. We covered their deficits, paid for their armies, and took care of the whole world. That ends now. In the president's view, this will lead to growth in the US economy. Furthermore, Donald Trump offered countries a way to reduce their tariffs to zero. If you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you make your products right here in America. A 10% tariff has been introduced for Ukraine as well. However, Russia is not on the list. There are no tariffs for Russia. Friends, be sure to share your opinions in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.